G'day, I'm Steve-O and welcome to the Outback Shed. Firstly, I would like to give recognition to my fellow YouTubers who have sent me their stickers. Livetools was the first sticker I received. They are a tooling supplier based in New South Wales. I purchased some tooling from them, and if you appreciate high quality tooling, I suggest checking them out. A big shout out to Arthur and the team there. Hare and Forbes are possibly the largest supplier of machine tools in Australia, and as you may have seen on my channel, I purchase a lot of my equipment from them. They are a great supplier, and as you can see on their website, they have everything for your hobby or professional needs. The next sticker I received was from Aaron at Aaron Engineering. Aaron is a professional teacher and makes videos offering technical advice and tutorials on many aspects of machining. I find him a wealth of knowledge and refer to his teachings often. Presling is a fellow YouTuber from Queensland. He is also a professional machining teacher and undertakes many complex projects in a much wider range than I do. If you enjoy my projects, I would encourage you to check out his channel. Dudley Toolwright is a hobby machinist like me. Based in the United States, his channel has been operating since 2016, so he has a real head start on me. He undertakes projects that are similar to mine, so if you like my work, it's a channel that is well worth checking out and subscribing to. This is a look at what we're going to build today, a refurbishment of my Arbor Press. I bought an Arbor Press several years ago, and it wound up on a dolly and spent most of its life being moved from pillar to post out of the way of other things. It sat on the tooling bench for a while until I decided to resurface it. Now it's time to make a stand for it, clean it up, make some modifications and some tooling. I also have a hydraulic press which has a 30-ton capacity. That has a foot pedal for pneumatic use. It's a great press but lacks tactile feedback. It's not really usable for broaching keyways or similar types of work, as the risks involved with a broach becoming misaligned and fracturing is too high. This Arbor Press has a capacity of 3 tons. It's a good quality unit given it's made of cast iron and not fabricated from steel plate. The base is 500 by 500 and the top plate is 250 by 500. The pillar will be made from a piece of RHS 250 by 150 by 6. This project follows many of the modifications made by this old Tony to his Arbor Press. He has already gone down this path, so full attribution to him for his inspiration in these works. The first job is to clean the steel up with some acetyl alcohol and take the sharp edges off with a power file. I want to weld some webs onto the base, so I'll cut these from a piece of 50 by 10 strip. The press is a bit scruffy and in need of a clean-up. I've had this apart previously and put some grease on the bearing surfaces of the ram and the gear, but I'll be using oil going forward. Grease is a good way of holding the pressure plate against the cap when mounting it back to the press. Setting the press on the top plate, I need to transfer the mounting holes so I can drill and tap them. Using a marker directly through the hole is not an accurate way of doing this. Using a block of wood to hold the marker vertical is not good enough either, as the surface of the casting is not even. I'll make a transfer sleeve to fit a centre punch and locate through the hole. I have a piece of 40mm aluminium bar set up in the Sheraton, and I'll make the two mounting plugs for the press. I'm going to use two 10mm socket head cap screws to secure the press to the stand, but the holes in the casting are a little over 20mm. The plugs will provide a means of using the smaller cap screws while centering the screws in the larger holes. I've set the top plate up on the mill and put identifiers around the two centre punch marks. I'll centre the spindle using a piece of plasticine and a needle. I don't want the needle tip to be perfectly centred in rotation, as I still want some movement. This way I can see how the wobble stops when it touches the punch mark, and the direction in which I need to move the table to bring the spindle directly over that mark. This is a remarkably simple and accurate way of centering the spindle over a punch mark. This steel plate is remarkably hard and it's really not very tool friendly. I bought this plate cut to size and not profile to allow for the press throat. I'll mill that out with a carbide roughing end mill. I would like a shelf in the column to store larger tooling and maybe some small jigs. I have a piece of 200 by 200 by 5 SHS that has been cut to 200mm long. That will do the job nicely. I could cut the hole in the column with an angle grinder, but I prefer to use the mill and machine the hole for a more accurate and neater fit. RHS, which stands for rolled hollow section or rectangular hollowed section depending on who you work for, starts its life as flat sheet. It is processed into profiled section by running the sheet down a weld mill line which has roller stands to progressively roll the sheet into a circular tube, at which point the edges are fusion welded by an induction weld head. The external weld scarf is cut off by a carbide scraper, then the tube goes through a series of roll stands to reform the circular tube into a square or rectangular section. This process puts a lot of internal stresses into the steel, and here as the hole is cut you can see the cut piece spring out. That's a reflection of some of the internal stresses being relieved. Always be aware when cutting profiles like this of the stresses that may be present and how that will affect your cut. I've set up the outside power distribution hub and MIG welder, and now it's time to make some grapes. Not the best welds I've ever done, but not the worst either. I really do need to get around this MIG welding. I put a coat of paint on both the press and the stand, just standard colours of blue and charcoal with a hammered finish. Next I'll make the tooling racks from some 1.6mm sheet steel. I made a jig to use for cutting the sheet based on a design by Neil Paskin. He has a YouTube channel, Pask Makes. I give full attribution to him for the design of the jig, and I'll put a link to his site in the description. Each shelf will have holes to mount up to 9 tools. The holes are evenly spaced and are 35mm in diameter for the top 2 shelves and 40 for the bottom shelf. I used screws to secure the sheet to a piece of timber to make it easier to drill the holes. After trimming the shelves to size, I'll bend them in the big press. I want the shelves to angle downward slightly, so I'll bend them to an internal angle of about 85 degrees. The folding bar in the big press is ideal for this. The top ram cap is removable and has a 25mm locating hole in the bottom of the ram, so it makes sense to make any tooling for the Arbor Press the same size, as this will allow tooling compatibility between the two presses. I painted the racks off camera. I'll insert rubber grommets in the holes to provide protection for both the tooling and the rack. I'll set up the ram in the 4-jaw chuck and square the end. It was accurate to start with, so this is just cleaning up the surface. The centering of the ram is not micron perfect, but it is within acceptable limits for this project. I'll machine a 25mm hole 23mm deep to take both commercially available and homemade tooling. It's important that the tooling sits against the bottom of the ram and doesn't bottom out in the locating hole. That might mushroom the tooling and make it difficult to remove. In the mill, I'll chamfer the end and install a 6mm grub screw to retain the tooling. Any Arbor Press refresh should include the removal of a couple of teeth from the rack. This will allow the handle to be easily repositioned to obtain the best position for leverage. After testing the ram, I went back and removed another tooth, as two were not enough to allow the gear to rotate for repositioning of the handle. The first tooling I'll make will be to take square socket drives. 1/4, 3/8 and 1/2 inch will cover most needs. I do have a 3/4 inch socket set, but I don't have a driver for that. I could make one as a future project though. That's a good fit on the adapter, so it will fit the ram as well. Don't you just hate these plastic coolant pipes? They never seem to stay where you want them. I'll machine a couple of blanks on a piece of 65mm 4140, one to be used as a large ram cap and the other to be modified later. They need to be a little loose in the locating hole so they can properly seat against the bottom face of the ramp. I started parting this off in the lathe, but decided to take it to the bandsaw to finish the cut. I have a cold chuck set up in the Sheraton, and that works well for finishing the tooling. I'll make tool holders for the bottom shelf out of a length of 2-inch HDPE. I'll decide when I make more tooling how these will be finally configured. I'll make 5 and leave 4 holes in the shelf empty for future opportunities. The socket drives are mounted to allow the sockets to climb over the detent and be retained against the holder. These are held into place by a grub screw rather than being welded into the holder. With this tooling, I can use sockets from 3/16 of an inch to 1 1/4, and for low pressure use that should be fine. The 2-inch HDPE and 40mm aluminium caps are good for softer materials and low pressure applications. The 65mm steel cap will work well for broaching and for heavier usage. I have some commercially made tooling. This pen driver set was not expensive. I got it for the big press and it will now fit the Arbor Press as well. The bush driver set is very useful with its variety of sizes. If I need a specific size not in the set, I could easily make it. The bearing race and seal driver set is also a good addition to the Arbor Press. Again, additional sizes will be easy to make. Both sets come with their own drivers, so they can be used manually with a hammer if needed. I've had this Eylet tool for some time, however I think I would make a former and anvil specifically for this task rather than use these. A steel platen 220 by 30 would be a worthwhile addition, and maybe a couple of platens the same size made from wood. They could be used for leather and similar softer materials. The press is mounted on levelling casters, so it can be moved around the shed as needed. I can jack the wheels up and leave the press mounted on feet if more stability is required. Again, a big shout to my fellow YouTubers who have sent me their stickers. Please check out their sites and subscribe to their channels if you haven't already. If any channels would like to swap stickers, please let me know. Well, that's it for this project. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video and enjoyed the build. Please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also leave a comment if you like. I do read all the comments and reply where I can. Be productive, be creative, but most importantly, be safe in your shed. I'll catch you next time.